So I started with that philosophy. I told you about the stock market, and I read a book called The Wealthy Barber by David Chilton, which is how a barber got rich just by being a barber, by saving his money, put it into mutual funds, and retiring at 70 with $1 million. But who wants to freaking retire at 70 years old when all their bones are broken? Seriously. They got osteoporosis, no eyesight. What are you going to enjoy, right? Seriously. So I always tell people, do you want to retire young and rich or rich and old?
I keep it real and stay flipping keys, no way. Eating good, I got a lot on my plate, but this is what I wanted, so I can't complain.
The Minority Reports podcast, where we keep it real, estate, and entrepreneurship education for the minority of 3% action takers. Here's your host, Billy the Kid, and co-host, Dan Delgado.
We're back.
We're in KC this time.
Yeah, we feel like we've been traveling.
We've been world travelers, yeah, I know.
We've been road tripping it up. We were just in Colorado last week. Last week. Now we're in KC. We have such a great show today. I'm excited to get him on.
Yeah.
So can't wait. But before we dig in, you're buying a house.
I'm buying a house. I know, and I'm not flipping this one.
What?
I'm keeping it. Yeah.
What?
I know. Yeah,
I shouldn't say that. That'd be bad.
I don't have insurance. I was just gonna say, I don't have insurance yet, so let's not say that. Yeah, but I was telling Billy on the ride here that I always forget about insurance when I buy a house, and then like last minute I'm trying to scramble to get it on my policies, but yeah, we'll get it figured out before closing tomorrow. So
and maybe we could talk about that a little more too, about the strategy that.
Yeah, once it closes, I definitely want to do a video on it because this is like this house is going to be like a great example of how you can build wealth through real estate investing.
Of what I've been doing.
And what you've been doing. And then it finally clicked to me. Well, because the first
rental.
So
real quick, when I first met you, I told you about it. And I think you were kind of like, oh yeah, it just crossed your mind a little bit. But
in theory,
we were talking about how once you actually do it, it clicks. Like even when the very first flip that I ever did, once I got that check, I was like, oh wow, this works. Or I said it on the Bigger Pockets show where
you were on Bigger Pockets?
542 episode 5. I said it on the show how even the Burr method, for example, how it didn't click until I actually did it. Like once I got that check at the end, I was like, whoa, this worked.
And like I said, so like for me, since I don't really ever hold anything, I just flip them. I do have the one rental, and it was kind of a weird deal. It wasn't a burr by any means, but when I did refi, I pulled a little bit of money out, but it wasn't life changing. And this house isn't going to be either. But I mean, well, I guess in a way it kind of is. And I'll explain it more, I guess.
It's the beginning of something.
Yeah, so it is because interesting because obviously I understand the burr method in theory. But since that wasn't really my strategy, and shoot, if I can, like you said, if I can do 2 or 3 of these a year, then that'd be awesome.
It's life changing for sure. And I call that method flip burr, which I guess this will air after I'm going to be speaking at the Omaha, so I probably already did by now. So I'm sure there's footage or something out there, or the audio.
You should hire a guy to do that.
I should. We need to talk on the way back.
We got 3 hours. And so you're buying a house too.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So I'm buying a house this Thursday. Today's Monday, so I'm closing on Thursday. And there's nothing like it. Actually, if you think about it, it's almost stupid. So shout out to Jamar. That's who I'm buying it from. He's a wholesaler in Lincoln. I'm sure you've probably seen him. I'm buying a house from him. The cool thing about it is that I made an offer, and then he came back. He's like, no, I can't sell it that low because this is where I'm at. And he showed me the numbers. He was very transparent. But when I went up, even at the place where I went up, he still couldn't do it. And then he got another offer, actually. And so I beat that offer. Or actually, I came up to that offer, and he was nice enough to give it to me because I was the first one that he met or whatever. And the cool thing, dude, is that later on, he actually randomly asked me, he's like, hey, do you play video games? And I'm thinking...
do you? You never do you?
Well, no. So that's what's funny, because I'm like, no. But then I remember, I play Madden. I really, me and some friends, we'd be going at it on Madden. So I was like, I almost said no, and move on. And I was thinking maybe he was going to ask me hey, do you play this video game? Do you want to hop on or something? I don't know. It just ran through my mind. But I was like, actually, yeah, I do. I play Madden. So he's like, since we're doing business, I'm giving you a PS5. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I was like, what? Sign me up.
Did you want to sell that? I've been trying to get a PS5.
I already had like 3 people ask me, "You want to sell it?"
No, it was like so. Like I don't play video games either. My daughter does.
Yeah.
But there's only a couple games that I play, and one of them was released on the PS5, and I was like, it's almost worth it.
Yeah.
I had a buddy on Facebook that was selling his, but I just can't bring myself to do it, man.
Yeah, no, and
well, shit, Jamal, I'm about to hit him up.
Do you have any more houses?
I know.
And he asked me if I wanted an Xbox or a PS5.
Wow.
I want to say he's one of those, and correct me if I'm wrong. If you're watching, maybe comment too on this podcast. But I want to say he buys them to flip them.
The PS5?
Because he had like 3 of them.
So he's one of those guys.
Yeah.
Like bots and shit.
Hey, you gotta get that money. But yeah, no, I'm pretty excited. So it's funny because I'm probably looking forward to more for that PS5 than and I'm actually gonna do probably a flipper on that. So that'll be exciting at the end anyways. But other than that, I got book of the week, right? And before that, make sure you guys pick up The Power of Being Uncomfortable.
Available everywhere.
You're like, all year. I got my first hate mail on my book.
Really?
Yeah. On Amazon. Like a
What'd
review.
they say?
Basically how I'm a nobody rapper who self-esteem
Can you
is
look
low.
it up? I want to like read.
Actually,
let's do it.
I can. I'll shout him out.
It's funny because like people waste
we
their
were
time.
just talking about this too.
Well, it's like people waste their time to put that kind of stuff on there, but they don't realize that they're actually helping you.
For sure.
Because it makes the algorithm put you up in the rankings. So,
Literally.
Like,
no, and it's funny because my sister's the one who pointed it out, and
was she all mad?
Yeah, she not really, but she was like, "Oh, ignore him." But it's like, "Oh yeah, you're telling me like I've been rapping. This is actually I want more of this." So shout out to Don Cisco. That's who it is. So it says,
let me read it.
Okay, go ahead. I'm a thug too. I'm a thug, baby.
Where is it? Where's the thing?
It's on the bottom, the very last review. Shout out to everybody else though that has really made a comment or a review. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is okay, 1-star review by Don Cisco, and the title of his review is "Who Does This Guy Think He Is?" Vanity press at its best. A thug that becomes a stop laughing.
Sorry, it's fucking hilarious.
Vanity press at its best. A thug that becomes an obscure rapper that turns to buying real estate and makes a few dollars. He uses all that catchphrases of an infomercial. His book is more about how great he thinks he is than wanting to motivate others. Sounds like Billy has some self-esteem issues. A waste of time to read. But you bought it, Don.
Well, no, and actually, if anything, dude, the funny thing is if he bought it, like, okay, I'm getting my royalties off of that. But if he didn't, like, that's where it at least give it a chance.
At least read
it's
it,
like at least read it, you know what I mean? And then so, anyways,
you need to respond like, thanks for your support, Don.
Yeah, I probably should.
Is it Don Francisco?
No, it's Cisco. So shout out to
you probably don't know.
Yeah, shout out to everybody else though that
cool,
have left some reviews. But thank you to what is it, Don Cisco too. I appreciate it because.
Yeah, man.
Like you said, it helps the algorithm. Yeah, for sure. But anyways, I got book of the week. And I'm actually excited to share this one because it's early in the year. And the title is The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. Nothing new. We've talked about it before. The Miracle Morning is kind of the same idea. So I was just telling you on the way here that before I became financially free, I used to wake up at 4 a.m. because I had to be at my job at 6 a.m. So I would wake up at 4 and then for an hour and a half go hard on my morning routine. So I've been doing it for a while. And then when I left that job and became financially free, then I told you too that I used to not like the sound of the alarm. It's weird. It's stupid. So what I did it was such a grateful thing for me to like turn off the alarm, and I never used it for the last whatever long it's been now that I left that job. So I usually wake up, but it slowly turned into, and don't get me wrong, I still did my run, I still did my morning routine, but sometimes it would be 11 a.m. and I'm barely starting to, do my stuff. Maybe I worked on a few things before that, not that I didn't do anything, but, and it's that freedom. So it was one of those where it's like, you know what, let me ride the wave. It was like, I need this vacation. It's been too long with this working stuff. Who does that? No, I'm sorry. I know. Shout out to everybody listening that is trying to get to that point. But anyways, So
Don Cisco's there.
Don Cisco. I'm an obscure rapper who is financially free, bitch. But no, so this year, I'm very consistent with the stuff that I do, but one of the things I wanted to do was to start waking up, and I'll get to the book because it reminds me of that. One of the things I added this year was cold showers. I started taking cold showers now. Bro, I'm going to tell you what, like the first week that I did it, by the third day, literally, and I don't even know, actually, I haven't even asked my wife if she heard me. I was like in there like, woo! Like with the water there, like I literally went, woo! Because it gives you this like sensation.
Well, it's like shock, man.
And we were talking about it on the way here, how one of the things that it does is it helps you lose weight because it kills fat cells. That's one of the things. I mean, endorphins, energy, like you're talking about all these great benefits to do it. And we were even talking about one of my guys with my construction company that I was telling him, I was like, hey, I started doing it. And he brought it up how whenever you get hurt with your muscle, for example, or whatever, that the first thing you do is grab an ice pack so it's cold. So he just kind of made it sound, because I told him, I'm like, one of the things too is that it helps with your muscles. It relaxes your muscles. So anyways, he brought that up, which that kind of made sense too. But anyways, the whole routine. And so I've been excited. I've been doing pretty good. Now I'm waking up at 6. So I'm not a 5 a.m. club. I'm a 6 a.m. club, which is still way better than before, where I was waking up at 8 or 9.
It's small steps, man.
And I also put myself first, is what I was telling you now with this morning routine. Not that I didn't before, but now more intentionally. So if obviously, if I got to be somewhere at a certain time, then I'll make sure I get done by then. But sometimes if I got to go to the store, for example, to pick up some material for one of my jobs or whatever, I won't leave until the last thing I do is read for 15 minutes. And so I'm very intentional now. And honestly, man, I'm loving it. Like I said, it's nothing new. I've been doing it, but it's nice to actually do it in the morning instead of 11 a.m. like before. So, basically, the main argument about this book is for a work-rest routine to join the top 5 performers, 5% performers. The book argues that a consistent morning routine, which starts at 5 a.m. for me, 6, will get you to a greater productivity, health, and happiness. Top performers 4 focuses on materializing their talent, working free from distractions, improving towards mastery, stacking small, consistent wins, which is like the little habits that we talk about. And also, I've heard differently, but this book said that it takes 66 days to adapt a habit and for it to become auto. I've heard there's a book, I can't remember the title, 21 days, yeah. But maybe the 60 days, they're talking more on like auto. But 5 to 6 a.m. calls it victory hour, or they call it victory hour in the book, split in 3 20-minute slots. So it goes from extreme exercise, reflection, solitude, then growth and education. And then 90 minutes after the victory hour, dedicate that to the project that matters the most, free from digital distractions. So that's
the back cover, right?
What's that?
That was the back cover?
The Google version.
You never read it.
The review somebody left on Amazon for that book. Don Cisco sent it to me.
An obscure author who thinks.
So yeah, check out that book and The Power of Being Uncomfortable. I didn't even finish saying earlier. Again, my book is out now, Audible. But yeah, who do we have today, man? I'm excited.
You better put some respect on his name.
Man, so let them know.
It's Troy Kearns.
We're back.
You're confused. That's a horn that he does every time.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah, he's kind of got his own thing going.
He's like a DJ.
You were a little scared there for a second.
Are you gonna patent that?
Yeah, right.
That's what people always say that.
I want to put my horn on that.
Next thing you know, Troy's doing
It was going to be the Dukes of Hazzard, but I'm thinking of switching it out, man.
There you go. Well, real quick, man, before we were just talking off camera right now, if you could let people know your name and just a quick background of your story.
So my name is Troy Kearns. I am originally from Seattle, Washington. I lived there until I was 28 years old. I moved to Vegas 15 years ago. And then I just moved to Kansas City 6 months ago. That's where we're at today. And all of it's been real estate related and football related. So
related. Okay.
Yeah. So I was originally a Seattle Seahawks fan, and I can tell you right now, somebody asked me the other day, actually one of my investment partners, he's like, so if Kansas City goes to play Seattle, who are you rooting for? And I said, Kansas City. I said, because I don't identify with the politics of Seattle anymore. I don't identify with that team's mindset. And when I was on, when COVID was shut down and I spent $160,000 on PSLs for the Vegas Raiders, they didn't even give me a phone call and didn't let me go to the game. But the Kansas City Chiefs welcomed me in, and I was at the game last night watching them destroy
great game.
Big Ben and sending him out on now just to go back, Big Ben defeated me at the first Super Bowl I ever went as a radio sales guy in 2006. I was there.
Wow.
This was back when I was drinking, which is why I don't drink anymore.
That was 2009 when they won the Super Bowl.
No, they beat us in 2006.
They did. Okay.
The Steelers beat us in 2006. It was a rookie year. Ben Roethlisberger, 23. He beat us. I slept in a parking garage in Detroit. So things have come a long way since then.
I was like, wow, you moved on up.
Yeah. So if you're listening, it starts, as you know, slow.
Yeah. Love it. We were just talking about
one more thing.
Go ahead.
And now I own 350 properties. That's probably the reason you guys have me on.
Yeah. Well, and actually, we get to that because I want to hear like the struggle first, and then.
Sure.
But yeah, thank you for clearing that up. So we were just talking about cold showers. You said that you did it the first time and you didn't like it.
Yeah, so I was overhearing your guys' routine in terms of like, I think that the morning routine is probably the most important. And I was hearing you talk about, basically, okay, what's this guy's morning routine? What's my morning routine? I hear a lot of people talking about the cold showers. I tried to take one. I couldn't get it done. And then the funny thing about that was that I just went down to Cabo San Lucas and they had this whole spa set up with like, you sit in these chairs and the chairs are shooting water at you. And then you sit in these some chairs that are not. But then the final was a hot tub that you dipped into and then went into a cold tub, which was 50 degrees.
Wow.
and literally my wife lasted longer than I did because I was like, man, this thing, cold is hot is comfort and cold is not.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
wow.
You don't turn your heat down to get comfortable in your house. Right. Turn your heat up.
Seriously. And I love that we're starting with a bang. So the title of my book is The Power of Being Uncomfortable. And that's one of the things. It's like, I feel like society has gotten soft, right?
Totally. 100% soft.
Yeah. And that's the major reason why I chose that topic, because in order for you to get somewhere in life, you have to be uncomfortable. And actually, if you could elaborate on maybe some experiences that you have gone through.
Well, what was that whole sleeping in the car in Detroit thing?
This is the, so we talked about earlier, like, I'm like, you guys want something to drink? And you're like, yeah, water, something. And I was like, all they got is beer in the fridge. And they're like, well, that's kind of our thing. and I'm like, all right, well, cool. They're like, but like, are you having one? I was like, no. And in 2007, I realized that in order to be successful, alcohol wasn't going to get me there. It might be okay for a lot of people, but for me, the reason I did sleep in my car in Detroit is because I was so intoxicated that night that I didn't want to drive. And then when I woke up in the Super Bowl, the garage was closed and I was in there like they had shut down the garage. This guy's sleeping in his car. We don't know about that. Yeah. So that was me being comfortable, actually, because I was comfortable, willing to, like, that didn't matter to me, like anything like that. I was, I remember actually that trip, and I think that goes to your core point, which is like identifying what you have on your plate that's making you uncomfortable, that you have to look in the eye. Yeah. Right. And so I talked about this with the whole, getting on social media. When I got on social media, I think there may have been a bunch of different things, which is like when I looked at my face the first time on social media, I go, I am fat as crap. And I was like, no, can you edit that? Like, can you freaking edit that? Can you make me like, and I was like, holy smokes. So, and then my buddy told me, shout out to Jason Abrams. He's like, bro, nobody's going to, he goes, you and I know that you have more properties than anybody else who's on social media. He's touting right now. Like, not anybody else, but a lot of the people who are out there. And he's like, but nobody's going to believe you. And I go, why? Because you wear sizes too big. Like, you're the old Navy guy that was everything double XL. And you think you're rocking that look and that's going to work. And so he's like, and you got one of the best dressed women around you, my wife. And so that's what you need to do is change your look too. So I've changed everything.
What'd you do?
What did I do in terms of changing my look?
Yeah.
So the first thing
I'm assuming you lost weight then.
Well, so yeah, I'm down to 197. And I think that's a big thing is like when you ignore the scale, which I did for a lot of years, and you think, well, because I'm good at running, because I can run 3 miles, or I'm good at this, I'm going to say, let's just take this part off and I don't need to worry about it. But when you get on camera, it don't lie.
Yeah,
it doesn't lie. It does not lie. It's not the camera adds 10 pounds. It's your delusion of what your current self is adds 10, subtracts 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And so what happened was I started doing the same things I normally did, which is going weightlifting, doing this. But I started watching other people on social media, real estate guys that I looked up to, and I watched what they did. And a lot of the guys were doing yoga. And I read Tom Brady's book, TB12. You guys were talking about books. I read his book, and I have
not read that.
Yeah. So I saw it. It's boring. Okay, it's super boring. But the takeaway is that the reason that the dude is still playing at my age, where I'm reading glasses to see things now, at my age, he's playing in the NFL at the top level.
Yeah,
we don't want him to win. He's winning so much.
Yeah. You have to respect it. Yeah.
But it's all because what we were taught, just like financial education, what we were taught at the gym, all these distractions are not the right way. And yoga and hot yoga is the right way. And I've seen my body I did a 30-day yoga challenge just in January. Because I had to go to Mexico. I'm going to Mexico. I'm like, okay, I got 30 days. I can do whatever. So I'm going to go 30 days in a row. I got 24 done, which is really for me. Good, I was like, because like day 4, when I missed that 4th day, I was like, I want to quit.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, let's just look at the whole picture. When I did the hot yoga challenge, my body transformed, my mental aptitude transformed, my calmness. I'm generally an anxious guy. It brought me.
I'm not getting that from you at all.
Right. Because I'm telling you, like the hot yoga. And the funny thing is, before I started my YouTube channel, I was doing yoga in my room and trying to get a little bit, but in a classroom setting where you're competing against other people.
Yeah. It's uncomfortable.
Well, and then I started taking off my shirt because my wife's like, "Why are you wearing a shirt?" You know, and I'm like, "Because I look fat, right? Like, who wants to look at that? Myself included, right?" And so when I did that. So I just went to a yoga session in Vegas, a hot yoga with a friend of mine who's been running the class, and every dude had their shirt off. And so I was like, all right, I'm coming back here. I'm taking my shirt off. Why? Because I want to see what I'm working with. Even though I saw some other guy in there that I was like, why did you take your shirt off? Like this guy, if I have a reason not to take my shirt off, he's got 10 more reasons. I was like, you know what? Like, it's just like you said, there's a book that I read. I think it's called The Comfort Crisis.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I'm on that right now. Yeah. Shout out to Colin. He told me about that book.
Great book.
Yeah. I'm not even halfway done yet. And
so similar journey to mine. He had struggles with alcohol and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And went into like the Siberia.
Yeah.
And got uncomfortable.
Yep. Alaska.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that, it's funny because actually, I wrote Michael on Instagram, and he did respond.
Right. You've been talking,
he did respond. We've been talking because I wrote him, and I was like, dude, I just wrote a book on the same concept, and I put that on everything. I had no idea. I did the funny thing is the research I did before I wrote the book, so I wouldn't like name it the same or somebody else or something. The word that I kept looking for was uncomfortable. Right. And the only thing I found was get comfortable being uncomfortable or something. That was like, but it wasn't a book.
Right.
So I was like, oh, great. And then sure enough, I found out that he released his like 5 months before mine or something like last year.
Now, do you read your books these days or do you listen to them?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. Both.
See, we're opposite. He has to listen to them. I have to read them. Yeah. I can't retain it if I'm listening.
Well, and I think what we've talked about it. What I do is the reason why I like the audiobooks is because it's faster.
Yeah.
I actually speed my books 2 times the speed. So like an 8-hour book, it's done in 4 hours. Right. And with the reading, I struggle to read fast. So by the time I finish one physical book, then I'm already listened to 3 or 4. So I want to learn as much as I can while I'm alive.
I think that both works. I think it's whatever works for you as long as you're getting the information, because I found out I kept just buying books and I would never read them because I used to have a lot more time.
I do that.
And so like if it's something that I really want to read and it's short, I'll buy the book. But Audible, like a lot of times it's in the guy's voice who did it. Like I read Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
Yes.
And a lot of books. And I just came out with my own book too. I just finished it. Like literally,
man.
Well, it's not. If they wanted to order it, they couldn't even order it right now because it's going through publishing right now. We could talk about the Amazon publishing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Did you do yours on Amazon Publishing?
Yes, I did it through my music label. So since I publish my own music, I just published the book myself for now.
I'm publishing on Amazon Publishing.
Yeah. No, great. I actually just finished the audio version too. Have you done your Audible yet?
No.
Okay.
Are you going to?
If you need help, let me know.
For sure.
I literally did mine.
Yeah, if you just did it, then you probably.
I have a studio too, so you're welcome to come to Lincoln to our neck of the woods.
For sure. Where are you guys out of again?
Lincoln,
Nebraska.
Yeah,
I've been there.
You have? Yeah.
On a train.
Husker game?
I'm about to say,
okay.
Through it or
No. Like literally, I'm from Seattle, as I told you, and I'd been there my whole life. And at 17 or 18 years old, 18, when I graduated college, I was like, man, I've always heard about Mississippi, and I want to go check out the South. I've never, when people talk about this, they're like, well, I tell my kids they're spoiled all the time, but I had never been on a vacation. Like I went on one vacation as a kid, and it was to California with my parents. We drove down there, and that was it. And so when I first got the opportunity to travel, I booked a train from Seattle to Mississippi, and it took 6 days. Wow. And it took me to every place in the country. And Lincoln, Nebraska was one of them. And I go, why does anybody want to live here?
Cheap real estate.
Yeah, no, that's
a great reason.
So just a random question. What are your success habits? What habits got you to where you're at right now? 350 doors.
I do not quit. That is probably my best skill set, is that I'm not the smartest guy. And I felt like because of that, I've had to make up for it with just like, I'll give you an example. Like I always just knew I could outwork everybody. Like that was kind of my bragging rights when I was selling real estate. I was like, nobody's going to outwork me.
Nice.
And then, so same thing translates into buying houses. Nobody's going to outwork me. Nobody's going to outwork me. And then once you build that philosophy, mindset that nobody's going to outwork you, then you start feeding that mindset with other things and working smarter. And then you don't have to work as hard. And so my thinking would be like, I just, coming from a family where my parents didn't have much, like there was always that, like, I didn't get to go to baseball games. I didn't go on vacations. And so I wanted that. And my parents did one thing right, or did lots of things right. I shouldn't say Mom, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Dad, if you're listening, I love you.
We'll cut it out.
It's fine. You can keep it.
We're just playing. No, actually, we don't cut it out.
We'll cut that out. Not.
Yeah.
So I mean,
that part will go viral.
Yeah. So like literally, it was just like, just like a kid that wanted. I think if we identify it as we're all little boys. If we at a true identity. We are all our little boys. We want the kid. We want the stuff that the other kid had, and now we're able to do it, and it's up to us.
Right.
I love that.
So, actually, on the topic, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and what did you learn in terms of? Was there how did you get into real estate? How did it evolve? I guess for you.
So yeah.
And to add to that question, when was the entrepreneurship seed planted?
Those are two good questions. Let me answer them both, Dan. So first of all, the way that I got into real estate. So I always wanted to be rich. In my yearbook, it still sits there today, and it's in everybody's yearbook who graduated Issaquah High School, class of '96. I said, I'll see you at the $500,000 mark in 10 years. I didn't know how I was gonna get there, but I knew I wanted to get there.
That's
so
awesome.
the mental capacity for being rich has been there.
Yeah.
I was mowing lawns at 8 years old.
Okay.
I had a paper route at 11 and a half. I worked at Burger King at 15. I worked at Red Robin for 8 years from the time I was 16 till 24. And I had a bunch of other side jobs at Denny's as a dishwasher and all that stuff. So I wanted money. Tips was money. This was money. I wanted to hustle. I wanted money. At one point in time, I thought I was going to be a garbage man, but that was very early on. But what happened was I really wanted to be in the stock market. I read books like Peter Lynch's Learn to Earn, Warren Buffett. I read the guy who taught Warren Buffett, which is a guy named Benjamin Graham, who has a book called Security Analysis, which is like, if you want to talk about a book you don't want to read, it's like literally like this.
It's definitely audio.
And it's just like reading math. You know? It's like the most boring book there is. And so really that didn't really, I had tried the stock market. I started investing at 17 in the stock market because one of the guys in my classroom, John Wood, had like an aerator, if you guys know what those are.
Oh, yeah.
And he was a little hustler and I was a little hustler. So we were bouncing ideas off each other. I started that with the stock market. And then I really was just confused. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought about going into the military. I went through MEPS processing. MEPS is where they process you for the military. And that was at 19. And then, you know, every choice that you make kind of leads you a different route. And so after I decided that the Army was making me jump through a bunch of hoops, I didn't want to be told what to do. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so.
Yeah, the Army's not the place to be.
Yeah. But my dad was in the military. My grandfather was in the military. I had a loss of direction at that point in time. I was looking for some direction.
How about uncomfortable? I feel like I think on my Bigger Pockets episode, I agree with David Green that everybody should go through the military.
Oh yeah,
yeah. To get uncomfortable.
I agree. That's the reason I wanted to go. Like I didn't want to go, but what happened was they made a mistake, which actually ended up working out for me. The guy was trying to process me so quick, he knew I wanted to go, that he's like, "Can you come tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can come tomorrow, but I have to be at my job at 11." Because it was like a sleepover. Mm-hmm. They do like crab walk. It's called, and you take the ASVAB test. And I was getting a waiver because I have a plate in my arm from when I broke it a long time ago. It's a simple thing. It works fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But they were doing a waiver for whatever reason. And that waiver was taken forever. Mm. And so I'm literally going to miss my job. I could get in trouble or whatever. I took my career, I always took my jobs very seriously and accelerated in them. Mm-hmm. And so I said, I got to go. And they never called me back.
Oh, wow.
And that's if they would have called me back, I would have joined. Right. And if they didn't, so what happened was I'm living with my mom at that point in time, and some guy comes in who is her landlord. His son comes in. His name's Aaron Renfrew, who is my mentor, and he's changing the doorknob. And I'm like I said, I'm trying to and he's like, I got 7 rentals. He's a little bit older than me. Like I think he's 50. He's like 6 years older than me, and I'm like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. And so then he started taking me out and showing me houses and showing me stuff like that. And then I bought my first condo to live in. I didn't own a home yet. That was at 24. Bought that, rented that out for $200 loss a month, which is stupid. Now that I know that that's not a scalable model.
Nice business.
Yeah. And so bought the second one as a fix and live in, right? And that one worked out good, but I didn't just by picking an ugly house and fixing it up. It worked out good. And then what happened was I had a job. I had transitioned into getting an internship at Intercom Radio. So I have a background in radio and advertising. I sold advertising. So I became one of the top sales reps there. And I was big into, I don't know if you guys like Howard Stern or...
Oh, yeah.
There was a guy named Tom Likas at the time who was like, if you were a young guy, he was like the guy who would teach you how to pick up chicks, right? Okay. And so living in going to college, listening to him, he was just entertainment purposes. And so I went and worked and got an internship for that station.
Oh, nice.
And then I became the #1 sales rep for that station, and I actually outperformed everybody there. And then they turned my station into a country station. Mm. And I made $215 that year. I was gonna make $300,000 the next year, but not when they take the station I'm selling away from all the guys that I've already built these relationships with. And so I bought 2 houses in Vegas from that job that were also losing cash flow since I was so good at it. I was like, man, let's repeat this process because we bet on the come, not on the buy, right? Yeah. That's what I thought. Like, who cares if you're losing money if it's going up in value?
Right.
And so...
Would you still agree with that nowadays? Like, if there's a place that you're like, you know what, I'll buy it, and even if I'm not making monthly payments and then sell it later, like, is that still...
Yeah, if you're doing that, stop. So it goes back to, so I think it goes back to when you need to hear the message, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm literally, we talked about the drinking, I'm literally moved to Vegas because of this. Mm-hmm. And to deal with these properties I own, take on a new career because I got pain, right? Mm-hmm. They took away whatever happened to me. So I moved to Vegas. I tell everybody I'm going to be the #1 guy in Vegas selling real estate. Well, I got a drinking problem and I've got a real estate problem. my real estate is losing $2,500 a month, and I don't have my head on my shoulders, right? And so I had to look at both of those things. And once I took care of the alcohol, then it was forced me to like, okay, now how do I solve this problem? And so I went and got a job. I went and got my old job back, moved back to Seattle for 10 months, but at that point in time, I had also just landed my first REO account. If you guys know what REO is.
I don't.
Well, can you explain to anybody?
I don't, yeah.
All right. So REO stands for real estate owned. It is what the banks put on their financials spreadsheet as what they're going to call when they take a house back in. It's called a foreclosure.
Oh, okay.
But I got in on the early wave in Las Vegas when all the foreclosures were coming because I saw it coming because the first house I bought for
what year was this?
2008.
Okay. That's what I figured. Yeah.
Well, in 2007 to 8, I moved back to Seattle. 2006, I started in Vegas. Okay. But one of the first houses I got assigned to me was one of the houses I bought in Vegas. Not the ones I owned, but in the same subdivision, same exact model match that I paid $310 for that I was losing $1,500 a month on. Was now selling for $250, and it was very early on. It went down to $120 or $110.
Oh my God.
So I was like, all right, so how do I think my way out of this problem? And I started selling a ton of real estate, developing a high income skill set, right? And then the market crashed, and I'm looking at these houses, and I'm like, let's sort by price. Forget location. What does that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
We're sorting by price, and I started sorting by price and buying cheap houses in the hood, and once I bridged the gap of that $2,500 loss, I said, why don't I just keep going here? And I was at that same point in time, I was driving around and listening to Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I had heard that message before where he says, well, how many houses can you afford to lose $100 a month? He's like, not very many. Mm-hmm. How many houses can you afford to buy that produce $100 a month? Right. As many as you can get. And I go, what the hell was I thinking?
Yeah.
And this information had all been told to me by my mentor. He's like, don't buy on speculation. That's a bad idea. Right. But until you actually make that mistake yourself.
Yeah. We were just talking about even just you hear all these different ways of doing it, but once you actually do it, it's a whole other monster. I don't know if you overheard us when we were talking about it.
Yeah.
And it's the same reality with that. So what was next then after that?
So, the reason I decided to not let the houses go was because I felt that no matter where I'm going, and somebody gave me advice, always keep your options open. And I felt like if I let the houses go, it's real easy to say that I can't afford to make these, right? Like at that point in time. But then I'm gonna have a foreclosure. I know my credit's valuable to me. I know that right now. And I know that some time down the road, someone's gonna ask me about those. Like, why did you make that decision? I'm gonna go to a bank and they're gonna be like, I'm going to say, well, I made a business decision. And they're like, well, that business decision cost you this business. And so I said, I need to think my way out of this. So Vegas market's crashing. I'm selling 40 to 80 homes a month. Jesus. Okay. So I'm making, and some of these commissions are $300. Oh. So don't think like that. You know what I mean?
Like, it sounded.
But listen, I was making, between $30,000 and $100,000 a month in a very short condensed from a guy who went from broke.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm looking at these properties and I'm like, all right, if I buy this house for $20,000 and it rents for $800 a month, 2,500 minus $8,000 or 800 is 1,700. I need to bridge that gap. So I started bridging. That's when the light bulb went off. Yeah. Obviously, when you're buying houses for cash, the light bulb can go off pretty easily, but they were not they were affordable for everybody, but everybody was scared. Like even the realtors I was talking to on the bus, like when we were doing a tour one time, they're like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm buying houses. They're like, but it's going to go lower next year. I said, I'll buy more.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're selling them for cheaper than they built them for back in the 40s. Like, how is that not a good investment? Yeah. And so that's when my mindset shifted. And then once I figured that out, I went into, hiring a property manager and realizing that they screwed up everything. So I needed to take that in-house and learning that aspect of things. And then
do you manage your own?
So why am I out in Kansas City? The first thing I did when I came out to Kansas City, because I know how important property management is, was I met with a bunch of property managers and I went with I would think would be the perfect way. You go with a brand name. You go with the guy who has the best presentation. You go with the guy who has the ability to fix your properties if you're buying crappy properties. And I interviewed other people, and the only thing I didn't do is check his references. And the guy ended up being a wolf in sheep's clothing. Now, I can't talk too much about it because I sued him, and we ended up settling. But I told my wife this was COVID. Vegas is shut down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I got to flip. I'm flipping out here in Kansas City. We could just go live in there for a little bit. I'll buy furniture. We'll call it good. Turn it into Airbnb, whatever. I'm like, are you down? We did it in 2010. We've got kids now, right? And then she's like, yes, because it's me. She's like, yeah, we'll do it. And we did it. And then we came out here and we're like, and I'm like, this is like real estate heaven. We don't have this in Vegas. There's not boarded up houses that I can go buy and make money. I'm like, and I'm like competing in Vegas, and I'm doing really well competing against guys who Vegas is sharp, And so I felt like coming out to Kansas City, it's going to be easy for me. And it has been.
We were just talking about management with the house that you were buying. Actually, we were on the way here. I told Dan, I'm like, it's funny because like the money, it's probably the easiest part, but I think it's management. Totally. Management is where the work comes in. But then I also told him, I'm like, but you know what? I'm willing to do the work because of how many benefits you get.
Well, here's the question. Who cares about your property more than you?
Right, exactly.
Right. That's exactly what he said.
I said that.
He's like, you're better off just because he's working on starting his own property management company. And my vision for my future when I have enough properties is to do the same thing. Right. And it's right because if you start your own, and I only want to do my stuff. I don't want to do any third party. He's looking at third party, and so that's why I'm like, you're right. You care about.
I don't want third party either.
Real quick, what I also said was, and shout out to all the financial advisors. That's just not my road, right? Or my path. But I told them, I'm like, it's like you take your money to the financial advisor. They're also watching for their pocket. So it's the same with management. They're watching for their pocket. And shout out to all the managers out there. But I feel like that's where the money's made. And if you and I love that you touched on. Okay, they, having systems like they can get a place fixed up, they can get this and that. So having those systems in place is what's going to make money. And I think if you're able, and honestly, I always tell people too, even if you, let's say for the long run, your goal is to just have them managed by others, at least start by managing because you're going to learn a lot that at the end will pay off.
Well, I think that, probably that's my best skill set because we talked about this before. I'm about ready to get a skyscraper basically in downtown Kansas City. For a subject too. Cross your fingers, whatever else. But that's what's going to happen. And the reason is because it's mostly empty. And I know I can fill it up. That's like, I know the construction's going to be tough, but filling it up is what I'm good at.
Which is the management.
What
are like 3 skills you need for being a good property manager?
All right, 3 skills to become a good property manager. Don't believe your tenants.
Man,
that is number 1. Because here's the deal: we're all human beings, and we all want to believe that people are telling us the truth. But the reality is every time a tenant goes and hands you money, they want a repair done because they feel like What I would say is don't believe your tenants, but treat them fantastic. Treat the great ones great and treat the ones who pay on time great, but don't believe them. Actions speak louder than words. The power company doesn't believe them. The utility company doesn't believe them. They just have more control over them, okay? And so that's the biggest thing. The other thing is, it's better to discount your property for rent than it is to sit and attract the most amount of tenants that are good for it versus just taking anybody, right? So vet your tenants. Again, vet your tenants and don't just rely on them providing paperwork. With the advent of the internet back in 2000 whatever or 1990 whatever, there's so many ways for us to get on Adobe Acrobat, create pay stubs, create all these things, and there's people who do this.
Yeah.
And so that would be one thing. And the other thing is, if you're going to be a property manager for your own stuff, understand that there's a human emotion involved and you need someone separating you from the tenant to your decision. Because if you're talking to the tenant and John, and you have a hard spot for John, or we'll say Billy in this case, we love Billy, and Billy's saying, hey man, because Billy's not calling you and saying, hey. When Billy's calling you, he's not saying, hey, I've got great news for you. He's calling you with bad news. It's like, hey, you know what? I want to give you all of my problems. I lost my job, And you know what? And if you're a human being, you're going to be like, oh man, that sucks. Yeah. I really feel bad for you. But if you have somebody between you, it's like, hey, this guy's not paying rent. And
I love that. Actually, it's happened to me. Like when below 10 doors, it was Billy, right? Billy the landlord, Billy this, but I'm the lord of the land, by the way. But no, and I felt and I always heard it like, no, don't be Mr. Nice Guy, right? But I learned the hard way, which is fine. Like it's still, I got a lot of experience, but to the point where it was like, well, it was hard for me to say no, especially when the lie, if it was a lie, looked real, if that makes sense. So me being the human. So now,
well, you choose what you want to believe.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I'll give you an example, just like on that. One thing I learned: people who I say, why would you be leaving your last place? Oh, the landlord, he's so nasty. He's got bed bugs.
Yeah.
Then you realize that the tenants are the carriers of those bed bugs.
Oh my God, seriously.
You know, and so that taught me, like, if a tenant comes over and they say, I'm leaving because of the landlord, generally it's because of the tenant.
Right.
And the landlord's the one moving them out because they're not a good tenant.
Yeah.
Whether they got the bed bug carriers or not. And that's just taught me a lot of things. You know, don't give people second chances unless you back it up with a stronger deposit and financial, because everybody's going to give you their problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right. I'm a changed person. You got 6 evictions in the last 6 years.
Seriously.
Yeah. Okay. What's changed?
Yeah.
Your same lie.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Troy, you wake up tomorrow morning and your bank account is at $0. What's your next move?
Man, I haven't got that question before. What's my next move? I'm going to think about this one for just a sec. It's, you know, obviously it's hard to do stuff. And I understand people saying, like, if you don't have any money, how do you start? I would start with wholesaling, and I would go all in on social media right away, because I would try to be getting wholesale deals. And I already have the knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would be like, hey, you guys, I just lost everything. I'm starting back over, and I'm doing it, and I'm going to film it. I'm going to show you how you can get back to the top when you fall down. Because knowing how to get there is the hardest part.
Yeah, I love that.
So touching a little bit on social media, that's actually, to me, what's been quite impressive about your presence on, you know, particularly Instagram. I'm assuming that's where you're most active, or maybe TikTok somewhere.
Those two.
Yeah, that's from what I've gathered in my research.
Repost.
So like it's not easy, and so I have a media business on the side, and a lot of times when I'm trying to help people, you know, we always tell them, like, you need to be consistent. You know, you can take one event and create content on it, chop it up, and now you have several weeks worth if you want. So for you, at what point in your journey did you realize, like you talked about, you know, looking at yourself in front of the camera, it was all awkward. Like, you obviously saw the value in the social media presence, but what even turned you on to it? Like, where did that start?
So I had a MySpace account. Oh, I'm going to date myself here, guys.
I did too.
All right. So I was a friend of Tom's, and I don't like Mark so much, but top eight. But no, so I, you know, honestly, what happened was, just like anything, when you don't understand it, you just dismiss it. And what happened was, when me and my wife were first starting to date, I was active on Facebook. I was MySpace. I was not. Instagram, I don't even think was around. And I got tagged in a bunch of stuff that I didn't want to be tagged in. Like, you know, and I just felt like this is just a waste of time. I wasn't using it properly, you know, and I just felt like this is a waste of time. I'd even had a YouTube account in 2011 where I posted a bunch of videos for people who were looking to come to Vegas and buy. But then I started watching another guy that I was selling properties to, and who was much further down the road in his investment career. And I watched how he did social media. His name's Ryan Pineda. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So Ryan's a good friend of mine. And so I started picking his brain through the whole process. And he explained it to me that it's never been explained to me before, and why he was doing what he was doing, and what it could do for you if you were willing to do it the right way. Just like real estate, just like not buying those $100 losses. Like, instead of putting videos up on stuff that doesn't matter, put on videos on stuff that matters and figure it out. And so Ryan really showed me the way on that.
What are some of the stuff that you will never forget that helped you out?
Well, it's not about the social media in terms of like the monetization of how much are you making on Instagram or how much you making on TikTok. It's about what you're able to do with that and what opportunities come with that. And the main reason is I had set in my mind that I was going to start a fund, because, as you know, when you invest with your own money, you run out of it.
Right.
And when you find deals that you're like, man, if I just had the money, and you realize that as you guys talked about, the money's the easiest part once you find the deal.
Yeah.
So now that I'm a professional deal finder and I really, as I'm also a deal junkie, there's been a lot of deals that I've had to pass on. And I felt like, man, if people could hear me and if people compared me to say, I'm just going to say this, compare me to a guy like Graham Stephan, who's teaching people that you got to have a 780, a 760, a 720 to get started. And I know that's BS. That doesn't, and he's got 3.6 million subs. And I'm going, he knows nothing about real estate. He knows everything about YouTube.
Yeah.
But the guy doesn't know real estate and he's teaching it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I know way more than a lot of these guys out there who are teaching it.
Yeah.
That's what, and once I understood that and I was already helping all my friends, anybody who wanted to be, like, if you're talking to me at a party, we're talking about real estate. If you're talking if we're talking about anything, it's real estate revolved. So why not just record it and figure out the social?
That's literally how we started this podcast.
Right, like, why don't we just roll camera, right? We already like talking about it.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, because he came by, he has a construction company, he came by to one of my flips, and we started talking about real estate. I didn't know he did any of their investing stuff, and we just talked, and we're like, shit, let's just do a podcast, and that's kind of how it started. But
hey,
yeah, man, it's
taking action though.
Yeah, no shit.
You guys took action. Most people just talk about it.
Yeah. So you started the how many followers are you at now? Like, let's say on TikTok and Instagram.
TikTok, I'm at like 72,000. Instagram, I think I'm about closing in on 12. And YouTube is closing in on 3,000. And I don't know what the other ones are. I don't really pay attention to those. So I think I'm at about 100,000 total. So
what's your strategy? Well, first of all, I'm gonna give you props, man, because you're doing this like by yourself. I thought you had like a crew.
So we gives props where props are due. We have a crew, but I would say 90% of the TikToks that are on there are shot by me and reposted by me, and all the engagement on all of it is all me.
That's
except
awesome.
for YouTube, which my guy Nick is, if he's got a question that he doesn't know the answer to,
right,
he hits me up with it. And I originally did have 4 different editors, but they weren't helping me with the stuff that we're talking about. In fact, one of Ryan's advice was get on TikTok, and I'd watched him blow up on TikTok, so I knew that I was going to start there because I could figure that out on my own.
Right.
And then Instagram, I was actually working on the hardest. And until I figured out how that thing really worked, I was just doing stories and stories and stories and stories. And then I'm like, I could just repost my TikToks.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then now I'm like to the point where I'm like, okay, it's kind of, if you look at it, it's a little.
Instagram it's like the new YouTube now too.
Yeah.
They because I do vlogs too on my YouTube, and I have posted a few on Instagram and it gets views. Reels, it's where it's at with Instagram. I've been doing a lot of those. I've been getting some pretty good money off of Reels. Once you monetize the Instagram.
We gotta talk. I haven't even monetized it.
Oh man,
really?
I need to get verified too. But people hit me up to get verified, and I'm like, I'm not paying.
Oh yeah, don't. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not paying you, dude. I know it's just submitting articles and freaking sticking with it.
Exactly, that's what I did.
Yeah, I've already got articles.
There's people that would, and I get it. Also, I mean, there's that social media stuff. If you want, hire somebody to do it, which is fine, but there's a lot of people that come on trying to steal your account.
Yeah.
Really.
Here's the funny thing too. Yeah, they know when you've hit a critical mass, because I was at Instagram was the hardest to grow, I think, besides YouTube, right? But YouTube's maybe going to take
That's been my easiest. It's funny.
Instagram?
Yeah.
Probably because you knew what you were doing before I did. For me, the Instagram, I was posting stories every day, and it'd be all right, I got 11 people checked in on my story today. Now
it grows though, man. It's just got to be, again, consistency. You just have to be consistent.
What would you say was the secret sauce that took you from 100 followers to where you're at now? Yeah.
Some really cool viral video. I put a contest out called the Millionaire Mentorship, where I actually, my dad came up with the idea, and he's like, I know how you are. You're willing to try anything, do anything, anywhere. And he's like, why don't you put a contest where you're willing to help someone else realize their dream? And so I put a contest up in 4th of July called the Millionaire Mentorship Contest. And the guy who won it was a guy from Houston, Texas, who was an electrician. And I funded a deal for him, and we're flipping it together. And we recorded that, and a lot of those videos that recorded that my guy stuck up, I had nothing to do with the edit, really took off. One's got 5 million views, the other one's got 2 point.
Nice.
And so I would say me doing something that I didn't want to do, which is this contest, going down to Houston and recording all of that, really gave validity to what I'm talking about, what I do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What sort of impact now that you've you've grown that audience and you keep growing it, what sort of impact have you seen on your business?
Nothing, because I haven't monetized it correctly. But in terms of like people who want what I have and want to, the education aspect was what Ryan told me about. Right. He's like, listen, the social media, you're not going to make a bunch of money on. If you want to really do it, you got to do the education piece. And since I'm one of those guys that I was looking at my own social media, looking at my fat face on there, and I'm like, until I have enough following, I don't want to sell anything, and maybe that was the wrong way to look at things, but I felt like I needed to get more comfortable on camera. Like when you're first looking at that camera, I don't know about you guys, but I was like, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to be on this thing. And so it's just a little nerve wracking, even when you're talking, and just learning, like you have a background, you mentioned, in this type of stuff, and you have a background in this type of stuff as well. But I didn't. Besides working at the radio station, which you aren't seeing, I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't know how to have your natural voice is way better than you sounding scripted. Yeah, right. And so just by doing.
Yeah. Just making moves, basically.
Yeah.
So nowadays, the 350 doors that you have, what are the what's that portfolio look like? Is it single family or?
Mostly single family, believe it or not. So I've got a 31 unit apartment building here, that one that you guys were at. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the one I bought this year. Last year. I've got a 42 unit apartment building, and then I have 4 large commercial buildings, which in Vegas maybe have 10 units a piece on them. So other than that, it's all single family.
And so you're in Kansas City now, and I don't think we've gone over like what made you pick, other than obviously the cheap real estate.
And
like how did you even end up with that idea?
Yeah, people are not going to like this answer. So I got some hate on this the other day, but you gotta put your passion together, whether that's watching football, with whatever you do, to make you take action, right? And so I'm watching football, and I'm watching Pat Mahomes on Monday Night Football take on the Indianapolis Colts. And I'd already looked at Indianapolis. I looked at that market to go invest in, and it's like it already ran. I can tell it. In Philadelphia, I had previously made an investment there, and it was just too far away, and I was too early in my investing out of state career. I was like, I'll just buy one. Well, I already decided that I was all in on Kansas City. Like I already identified this market. I came here in 2019 because of that game and investigated the market. Like I didn't just come here because of the game. I didn't come here for the game or because of the game. It just put in my mind like, oh, I've been hearing about people in Kansas City. Yeah. And so I came here in Thanksgiving of 2019 with my wife. We stayed here for a week. Went to the Raiders versus, sorry about your loss. the Raiders versus the Chiefs. And I was like, man, this is just like a great market. And so we hired a property manager. That property manager ended up screwing me. And so I'm like, you know what? We were already on our way to Florida. Like we were done with Vegas. We love Vegas. I love Vegas. People say, people don't like Vegas. They move because I just felt like I couldn't get what I wanted. I wanted a big piece of land. Right. I wanted a big house. And for that, it doesn't exist in Vegas. Yeah. The most you're going to get is an acre. I wanted to ride my ATVs and stuff like that. And so I said, you know what? COVID happened. I told my wife, she's sitting around. She's spraying me down with Lysol every day. I don't know if you guys have wives or anything like that. Yeah. So like I'm taking my clothes off. I'm stripping out there. I'm like going as a warrior. I'm flying back and forth from Kansas City and I'm going. And then our manager rips us off. And so I'm like, you know what? You've been here in the house for 30 days. This thing is a bunch of BS. Like, not just saying COVID. I know a lot of people have died and stuff, but I'm like, the reality, the percentages, we're going to be okay. Yeah. And so I'm like, let's rent an RV. There's nobody on the road right now. Everybody's at home. Let's rent an RV and let's go to Kansas City. So I rented an RV, drove to Kansas City, and we spent some time here. And then we came back again. And then we really love the people out in the Midwest. You guys live in the Midwest. Yeah, it's the Midwest. I mean, people are nice. Yeah. Like in Vegas, they are going to, you know what I mean? And I'm not talking about it. I got great friendships in Vegas, but I really felt like even like we're sitting in my office of the realtor who sold me my first house out here, who's welcome me into her life. You know what I mean? Yeah. Obviously, I bought 100 properties from her.
That helps a little bit.
but just those relations. I just felt like I had been welcomed so much from the city, and I felt like this is the right move And change, I embrace change. When I moved to Vegas, it was the best thing I could have ever done.
Yeah.
Moving away from Vegas is probably the best move I've ever made.
I love that. That goes with that uncomfortable thing that we were just talking about. And you have to embrace change. Like that's part of the reality of getting to be successful. And it makes me think of a question I want to ask you is if somebody's out there listening that has 0 deals right now, what is some advice you would give them to get to where you're at?
Don't hit up people and say, "Can we get a cup of coffee?" That's number one. Like,
everyone hates that.
Or pick your brain.
Yeah, or pick your brain. You got 30 seconds. Like, I mean, dude, listen. Here's the deal. We all want to talk to you, and we all want to hear what you got to say. But the reality is there's only so much time in the day, and we choose who we spend our time with. And unless you're going to provide some sort of value, like I'm looking for social media people, I'm looking for people who have a skill set that I don't have. Mm-hmm. But if I'm going to trade my time and my skill set to teach that person, bring something to the table. Mm-hmm. And don't just be a leech who's trying to learn.
Yeah, I love that.
And you can watch all the YouTube videos in the world. You can watch all the podcasts in the world. Just start. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid. If you don't have any money, wholesale. It's easy. It's not complicated. It's just what you have to learn to make it not complicated. I always say easy. People get pissed. Oh, concrete's easy. I'm like, well, it's easy once you figure it out.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're like, you said you're a musician or a rapper.
Yep.
Was it rapping hard when you first started?
Yeah, I wrote about it in the book. Yeah. That the first song. Writing the first song was uncomfortable, but then now it's like easier, right?
Not just that, but for him, like English is, his second language. Mm-hmm. And so in order to be articulate enough to have a rap song,
are you Cuban?
No, Salvadorian.
I was like, he's not Hispanic. I heard how you were speaking on the phone.
Mexican.
Yeah, you're not Mexican. You are Hispanic. You're not Mexican.
He's Arab.
Yes. Yeah. No, I can't say that. You guys can say that. I can't say that.
He's invited to the barbecue.
Yeah. You can come to the carne asada.
Yeah. So I actually love the Latin culture. One of my goals this year is to do Duolingo 10 minutes per day.
Yeah.
My kids, we love Mexico. I honestly, one of the things I always tell people is like, the only people who want to come, but people get, I'm a Republican. People get mad and say like, actually, I would just say I'm non-denominational. I just vote for the guy. I wouldn't even qualify myself as a Republican, but a lot of Republicans say like, well, the border needs to be closed down and stuff. I'm like, the only guys who want to work are the ones that are coming across the border.
I was just gonna say, man, like if you learn Spanish, that would help you so much with your construction projects.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it would kill it, man.
It would 100%. I understand enough. Like we could have a conversation right now and it would be like me not talking like I am right now. I'd be like, see, despacio. But I just feel like if I can master Spanish.
Oh man, yeah, take it to another level.
Well, not only that, but think about it. Like I have a friend of mine. And we're not friends anymore, actually. But one of the things that you know how that goes. And that's just because when you have long-term friendships, sometimes they're trying to go and we're trying to go.
Oh my God, that's the theme of ours all the time.
Yeah. Right, like you realize that hey, this guy might be using me or whatever. Yeah. But one thing that always impressed me with him is he spoke both languages. He's taught himself Spanish, and just the amount of clout I would give to him because he spoke Spanish, just because he speaks an additional language. I think that you get a lot of like respect that the fact that, hey, there's this white guy who's speaking like he just
it's impressive, man. Yeah. Like when I was out in China for some time for my old job. And when I was in the Beijing airport, this Chinese dude is talking to someone in Spanish, but like the Cuban dialect Spanish.
Right.
And it just blew my mind. And I was like, holy shit. Like you just don't expect that. But then like, and I have met people who are just like a regular white dude. And then they just bust out. And it's not even just like, the white Spanish, it's like Spanish, and it's like with the accent. I'm like
more proper.
That's just hard. But
so, are you Mexican?
No, so my parents are Nicaraguan.
So you're Nicaraguan, and
Salvadorian. El Salvador.
So
have you ever had pupusas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I have a lot of. Actually, one of my editors was El Salvadorian. Yeah. So I love culture. I want to go to Nicaragua. I want to go to El Salvador. I love checking out the whole thing.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, people always say like, What advice do I give? Go back to your question is work your freaking ass off. And it's that easy. It's that easy. There's so many people, as you know, that don't want to work, that don't want to, that do not want to do anything. And literally, if you start any business, whether it's real estate, if you start a business, I'm going to be a landscaper. You're going to make money if you provide great service, you communicate.
Yep.
because nobody else is doing it.
And it's that being comfortable again. Like, I can't stress that enough. It's like, it's comfortable getting help from the government, and not that there's a problem, because I come from that, but those systems are designed to get to that next level in your life, not to be comfortable and live off of it. Right. Like I said, I come from that, but I knew that was temporary. I knew that it was designed for that.
Right. Yeah.
So, and to continue on, so you have 350 doors right now. What do you do for marketing to get those deals?
You mean, how do I acquire them?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you find them?
Well, right now I'm not trying to find anything. They're finding me. Obviously, if social media is helping out with that.
I love that you say that.
Yeah.
You said it like
you get big enough and they find you.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to buy anything right now because I've realized that I've got the single family house game figured out. And if I want to buy them, then they better be just super cheap and I'll buy them. Otherwise, I'm just passing.
Like a smoking deal.
I bought one for $12,500 the other day. That was just an unbelievable deal, and I couldn't say no to it. I bought another one, but I have to say no a little bit more now because I really, really want the big deals. I'm ready
for that next.
I'm ready to take that next leap, which is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I am not. And if I continue to buy those houses, then I'm going to be out of capital.
Yeah.
And so that's, I guess, the best answer I got for you.
No, that's a great answer, actually. And how did you, scale that business to go from 10 properties to that 350? Like, what was that gap there?
I think people can manage a lot on their own if they use what technology we have, like AppFolio and things like that. And if they use VAs and they use other things like that. So for me, I was a high producing real estate agent, and I was still buying properties, and I was still buying properties in other markets. So you want to utilize property managers when you can. Like, I have a great property manager in Mississippi, Elaine. Shout out to Elaine. I have a great one in Tacoma, Washington. Shout out to Jeff. But out here, I was buying at such a pace and intensity that, like, if I wasn't going to buy those many properties, I was going to have to do it myself. So one of my great employees, Daisy, asked me the other day, she's like, I feel like I'm alone because one of our employees quit. And I'm like, Daisy, at the end of the day, I want you, and I don't care if I have to hire a property manager because I've already done the hard work, rehabbing the properties, putting tenants in them. So at the end of the day, if I decide, you know what, I don't want to deal with the property management anymore, I hand my portfolio over to somebody else. But going back to your original question, understanding how to manage my properties correctly and manage my people correctly grew me. I didn't grow myself. I put the people in the places so that I could grow.
How does your team look like? Or what does your team look like right now?
So I have a full-time executive assistant named May Tana, which we talked about. She's been with me 15 years. She was started as a transaction coordinator with me. I have Kristen Ernst, who started with me. She was my executive assistant before May, she does all my acquisitions. So if I get a property and I say, hey, I'm buying this one or whatever, she'll take it all the way to close. Like, she funds the money. She does everything. I have Tyler, who's out here in Kansas City. He supervises all the contractors and all the work and checks all that stuff. I have my wife, who's like my rock. She's got everything that I don't. I have Daisy Del Toro, who is basically wearing a lot of hats at this different time. She used to run my tow company, which I shut down. We could talk about that later if you want, about staying in your lane. And I have Julie Battaloni, who is my bookkeeper. And I have a lot of other people who I'm not mentioning right now who play a huge amount of my success, which is including all the guys out working in the field and doing a great job for me there. There's probably I probably feed, people ask me, how many people are you feed, or how many people are you employ? And I said, it's more about how many people I'm feeding. I'm feeding hundreds of families right now through real estate. So
as we know, the business that we're on is stressful, right? How do you deal with stress, and how do you make yourself happy?
So stress, I think I've correlated that my stress level goes down if I exercise and eat healthy. So if I want to deal with stress, I got to eat healthy and exercise and probably play golf and do things that are enjoyable to me, right? You got to do things to keep yourself off of this. If you're always constantly looking at the work, that's going to create more stress, right? You're going to realize I've got more problems. I've got more problems than I realized I had. So you got to, And I would just say the routine, like you mentioned at the beginning, having a good routine. I don't feel like I'm stressed ever, but I have been stressed.
Yeah. And yeah, that's when I asked that question, that's what I mean, because I think I don't think we would be where we're at if we didn't know how to deal with it. So that's why I love hearing your answer of how you deal with it, because there's stress, obviously, with whatever it is that you do, but you got to have that mindset to.
I think that's the key word, is the mindset. Like it's uncomfortable to get on your first podcast. Mm-hmm. Like, this is not my first podcast. You guys are like, you're not uncomfortable, because the first one was super uncomfortable. The second one was uncomfortable. If you look at me on Ryan's show, that was my first podcast. I'm uncomfortable, right?
I gotta look it up now.
Like, so
we'll check it out on the way back.
So the thing is just, you got to start. Yeah. Like I talked to the guy the other day. I was watching the guy I was looking at this building downtown Kansas City, and one of those guys who washes windows up on the skyscrapers. And I go, "Hey man, are you scared doing that?" And he says, "No." And I said, "But when you started, were you?" He said, "Absolutely." And that just goes to show you anything. Whenever you start anything new, it's scary. If you go talk to a fighter who's going, Mike Tyson, Mike Tyson was nervous. Yeah. He fought scared. Yeah. And ferocious. But
it's like, it reminds me of a chapter. It's one of my chapters in the book is what you fear is what you need to do next.
Right. 100%.
But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's just like, listen, you can make every excuse in the world not to do something. And that's what we tend to do as human beings. Like, I don't want to lose weight because I like eating.
Yeah.
Like for me, like my lady who
I feel you on that.
But listen, but eventually you got to know what works for you. Right, like for me, counting calories doesn't work. Right. But what works for me is looking at the scale, because then I can decide that day if I need to. Yeah. If I can decide that day if I'm up on weight, that I can actually make a decision that day that's going to make me down on weight. Right. And if I get on the scale the next day and it still says the same thing, then I need to make that same decision the same day to go that way. And if I'm like, oh, things are going great, let's go to Mexico and eat everything.
You know, that's the time to do it.
Celebrate, that trophy, huh?
Right. So I think the discipline with the rewards helps you keep going.
And how do you make yourself happy?
Oh, man.
And what is happiness?
Well, that's a great question. You know, the more I
sorry.
No, I appreciate that.
Just hit.
You know, it's funny. I like the hard questions because I don't want to just take the time to just flip it out there and tell you like, happiness is something that I think that is different for everybody. I mean, there's a lot of guys who are riding the lawnmower right now who are completely happy. Yeah. For me, I have an inner drive that I don't know that a lot of people can identify with. And for me, happiness is two things. One, and the most important, is that my family is protected, healthy, and safe. Okay. And that means everybody in my family. And that keeps me happy. And knowing that I'm the guy that can provide for any of them and all of them if I needed to, like if I needed to provide for my sister. But how do I keep happy is by getting good at things I'm not good at. Like right now, I'm terrible at golf, but why? Because I don't practice enough. I don't practice enough. And so that's what keeps me happy, is improving myself as I get older. Like I literally looked at myself today and I go, I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm 44. And I go, and I compare myself to Tom Brady, even though that's not a good, but we're the same age, right? Yeah. And I'm like, man, that guy's an inspiration to me. Who cares about the fact that he keeps winning? Yeah. He keeps winning. But, if I can become better today than I was yesterday, that's what keeps me happy.
So you're just competing against yourself.
That's it.
Right. You mentioned earlier the importance of staying in your lane when you're talking about your toe thing. First of all, can we hear a little bit about that story?
Right.
And then also your position on staying in your lane, because that's also a really big theme for us too.
So cause and action, right? So I got my car towed in Miami when me and my wife were first dating, and I was down there. You guys have probably heard of the show now. It's like famous, the South Beach tow, but that's who towed my car. And I fought like hell to get it back. I didn't think it was just. I didn't think it was, whatever. But I ended up paying him $240 cash. I remember the guy just kept repeating everything. I said $240 cash. And like everything I would say was $240 cash. Like whatever I said, $240 cash.
Maybe that's what we should do as landlords. No matter what question they're asking.
It's very
1,000 a month cash.
Yeah.
You don't pay, you don't stay.
Yeah. So that business idea laid a thing. I was like, man, that's a really good model. You got someone's car. It's basically a ransom.
Yeah.
You can't get it back unless I pay you, and you have the right to do that because of the laws that are enforced. And so I fought them. And a couple things that I found out that I'm reflecting back on now is, number one, the attorney that they had was the former mayor of the city that they were towing for. So and then you realize that's all juiced in. So what happened was, I knew my buddy had a tow business. An unsuccessful one, just a fledgling one. And so we talked about becoming partners. I probably should have done that to put my foot in the table first. And I was just like, with these guys, I don't want to be partners because they were running as a cash business. And that just leads to me believe that if you're going to hide stuff from whoever, you're going to hide stuff from me. Right. And I didn't want to go in with that thinking. Right. Maybe they weren't, you know what I mean? But I didn't want to go in there with that thinking. So I said, when you're ever ready to sell it, hit me up. And so he hit me up like 4 years later. And I was like, yeah, I'm getting my dream here. I'm going to be a tow operator. And so I literally got behind the truck because I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I always tell people, and this is another word of wisdom. Are you willing to do whatever it takes? Because guys who are successful are willing to do whatever it takes. And I got behind that tow truck and I started towing cars. I'm with my partner. I brought a partner in. I knew I couldn't run it myself, but my partner had no experience in the tow business either. And I didn't even know the guy. I just started reaching out to guys that were Israeli because they own towing businesses in town. I'm like, do you know anybody who wants to partner with me?
That's funny.
And so, what happened was, I actually was very successful in the towing business. I knew how to scale and get contracts and sales and all that stuff. And so I grew. And then all of a sudden I made all my goals known, which is that I wanted to get Metro, which is that you would make $1 million a month getting the Metro contract in Vegas, maybe 3 million. And so I'm starting letting all the big guys know I'm coming. I'm coming. And all of a sudden, wouldn't you know it, that the governing board of Nevada that governs us I tow properties off my own property. 11 cars we towed off my own property after warning them, giving them the proper notice, everything. They called me up. They said, we don't like the way that tow went down. So what do you want me to do? Well, we can't tell you what to do, but we think you should give them back. Oh. I said, okay, I'll give them back. And then all of a sudden, after that, they go, our investigation hasn't started yet either. Ooh. And then after that, I just was a reign of terror for the next 2 or 3 years. I just ended it at January 14th. I surrendered my license back.
Of this month?
This month. Holy shit. Just ended it.
Friday.
Yeah, it was Friday. Listen, the wound is still open and bleeding. Wow. So you know what? Really, here was the learning lessons from this. Stay in your lane because number one, that took 5 years or 6 years now, right? I started in 2016, and I was successful, but I put my real estate goals to the side, and for the last 2 years, I really didn't because I basically once the state was beating me and trying to fight me with everything they could, I realized I was never going to win. Right. It was just about me going out on my own terms versus about them trying to push me out. Yeah. And even though they did push me out, I went out on my own terms, and I'm selling my business to the general manager as an owner carry. And so it's turning negative into a positive. And the big thing I learned there is if you're going to get into that type of a business, you better know who the players are first, and you better have the political clout before you get in that business. So if I look at I
would have never thought that. So
seriously.
political. Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because those guys are making $3 million a month. They're going to protect that for their life.
Wow.
And I thought, I'm calling them up. I've been calling the guys up, and I'm like, you guys want to get together for lunch? Can I buy you a cup of coffee? And they're like, you better go away. So
Wow.
How did you finance the 350 doors that you have now?
So I always say real estate time is on your side. So the two properties I bought first, the condo that didn't cash flow, anybody could get a mortgage in 2005. They would do stated income. And so those two were financed with just stated. One was I think a 5% down, 2% down loan, whatever. The other one was like a 5% down loan. And then the two houses I bought in Vegas, it was like, yeah, don't even worry about it. 10, whatever, we'll finance you. And then the bottom dropped out.
Yeah.
I was losing $2,500 a month on those properties. So, and I was selling a massive amount of houses, 40 to 80 a month in Vegas during the bust. So I started buying those houses for cash because they were like 10, 20, 15, $30,000, $40,000.
Wow.
And I developed a high income skill set, which was selling real estate. So I bought the first properties for cash because I was making so much money cash. And I knew that real estate investing was probably the right way to go. And then as time is on your side, those property went up in value. I would 1031 exchange those. And now really what I try to encourage people to do is buy cheap houses for cash and then use your lending for the bigger Airbnbs. Like if you're going to buy an Airbnb in a different state, it doesn't make sense to pencil cash.
Yeah.
Use that with the cost segregation to eliminate your taxes and whatnot. So financing, I know that. So to answer for people starting new is what I would probably say is like, buy a flip and burr it, which would be a flip to yourself, where you take the money and hold it as a rental.
Yeah.
But if you can buy the houses for cash in cheap markets, like in Kansas City, you can buy a house, or in St. Joe, Missouri, you can buy a house for $20,000, move-in ready.
Yeah.
$25,000 move-in ready. So a lot of people have that in their 401ks.
Yeah.
That's no pressure. You got no mortgage. You got no nothing. It's no pressure. So
I love that. Love it, love it, love it. And you keep mentioning high producing income. Can you stress the importance of having something like that? And I think I know what you're trying to say, but for somebody who's hasn't done anything yet.
All right. So if you're working for a job, and let's say you work for McDonald's, and McDonald's is paying great right now. They're paying $21 an hour, right? Which is a really good wage.
Might get a job there.
Yeah. and Quick Trip too. So we realize that now, the minimum wage is going to go up to something because we know that's happening next. But you're trading dollars for hours.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I talk about a high income skill set, I'm talking about not trading dollars for hours. I'm talking that you're trading.
I love that.
Unlimited.
I love where you're heading. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're
sorry.
You're fine. So I don't consider myself a brainiac where I'm going to go and say like all this stuff. I look at myself, I'm like a regular guy. If I was going to start a high income skill set, I'm looking at what I do. I would go buy a dump trailer, right? And you could finance a dump trailer for like $100 a month.
Yeah.
And I would go, and if I have a truck, then I'm a guy who provides dumping services. What else can I go off that dumping service? Can I put a pressure washer in there? Right? That's a high income skill set. Now I can make $1,000 a day, $2,000 a day if I'm willing to work hard, right? So it doesn't have to be, guess what? If I go and take a test and become a guy who sprays bugs, the chemicals, and I get a bug route going on. And believe me, I thought about this business too.
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane, right? And so you just have to find a service or something that you can do. Wholesaling is a great one if you want to stay in your lane and do real estate.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have money, but you figure out how to find deals, the money's the easy part.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to say is don't trade dollars for hours.
Yeah.
Find something where you can, and wholesaling might not be for everybody because, wholesaling can take a long time to find a deal.
Yeah.
But if you go get a dump trailer, you're in business today.
Yeah. I love that. So earlier just to kind of wrap it up with that, you asked me earlier what books so it's funny. I always have a physical book and the audio, which we talked about.
Right.
So right now, Comfort Crisis is on my audio. And then I'm reading the Millionaire Fast Lane. Have you read that one?
I have not. Who wrote it?
Oh my God. I'll tell you after the show. I have it written somewhere. Great book because, and I was telling Dan on the way here, I'm sure I'm going to make this book of the week, one of these episodes. But as of right now, basically the way that he has it is there's sidewalkers, there's the slow lane, and then there's the fast lane, which I haven't gotten to the fast lane yet, but I can already tell. But the sidewalkers are people who cry about everything, paycheck to paycheck, which is fine. We've all been there, right? Like I've been there, but you don't cry about it. They're waiting for the government to help. And then there's the slow lane, and it's crazy. I was telling Dan that it's mind blowing the way he puts it in that book is the slow lane basically could mean just putting your money in the 401k, but it's still slow. 40 years later, you might even be dead at that time. I
got to elaborate on that point. So I started with that philosophy. I told you about the stock market, and I read a book called The Wealthy Barber by David Chilton, which is how a barber got rich just by being a barber, by saving his money, put it into mutual funds, and retiring at 70 with $1 million. But who wants to freaking retire at 70 years old when all their bones are broken?
Seriously.
They got osteoporosis, no eyesight. What are you going to enjoy, right?
Seriously.
So I always tell people, do you want to retire young and rich?
Yeah.
Or rich and old?
Yeah.
And if you're old out there, I apologize, but you've made some bad decisions. It's true. You know what I mean? And the reality is if you're listening to Dave Ramsey, if you're listening to guys like Graham Stephan, that's the slow lane. That's the no-go lane. You are actually buying into your golden handcuffs and your, what I would call, do you guys play poker?
No.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Okay.
I have,
So when you got all your money in the pot and you got a bad hand, you're called pot committed. Meaning that it's so hard for you to fold that job because you've been in it for 25 years and you got X amount of dollars invested in the 401k. You're like, I'm just going to write it up.
Yeah.
Like my buddy right now, who's a firefighter, and he's my best friend, but he's like, I'm just waiting because I got this pension and this. It's like, dude, that doesn't need to stop you from doing a side hustle or what. Get a side hustle would be the answer. Get a side hustle if you're in the slow lane, and then that side hustle could become your high income skill set. And
even that slow lane is where you trade time for money, which you talked about, so you can't leverage that, is a big point that he makes on there. And then like the compound interest also, and the crazy thing is you hear how those are great vehicles, right? But he says that it's bad because time needs to pass in order for that to expand, which is like, it's mind-blowing if you like, we know that, right? But the way he puts it in this book, I'm telling you, like, I can't wait to
also, a lot of people have a perceived safety in that slow lane. So like your buddy who's waiting for that pension, like, especially I went to school originally. I went to school to be a firefighter. So I know you get, you work one day and then you get the next day
Can we
off.
drop a calendar?
No.
It's 9 days a month, guys.
Calendar.
So like you do that and then you get your Kelly days. So you get, however, like a week off.
22 days to work.
So you could totally,
22 days.
A whole other life if you want,
Yeah.
So
but
it is that comfort that people feel, or at least
if you're making great money as a firefighter, you got all the free time in the world to do anything you want to do. And if you don't, and some people, and let's be clear, some people don't want that. Some people's happiness is not being an entrepreneur, and they should stay in their lane, but they should ask themselves a question like, am I only this way because I'm scared, or am I this way because I like this way?
Yeah, very true.
There was by the time this airs, it would have aired, but we had interviewed Nick Kesta.
It was just the same.
Yeah, so his
that's literally what I thought of when he said.
So Nick owns a.
Actually, he's coming to KC. We should hook him up.
That's true. Yeah, we should.
He's coming to KC. He's building now.
But he owns like a chain of boutique hotels, and so he said, and I love the way he said it, he's like, I can either sleep well or I can eat well. And I like to eat.
Yeah.
And so he's like, so what he's basically saying is like, as an entrepreneur, you're sacrificing things. Like you have a lot more, things to worry about because you're managing people. Like, so you're feeding a lot of families. So you have this higher level of worries than a 9-to-5 person would have. And so that's the sacrifice you have to make. And that's not for everybody. And we do talk about that too. Is like, we don't want to rag on people that have that lifestyle, but you also have to be willing to sacrifice.
Only if they're asking for help.
Only
if they're asking for help.
And also, I mean, this podcast is not for them either. So, because I've gotten some backslash on, which whatever, I don't care. Like, I don't know if you heard us talking about my book review, the one book review that somebody left. But
shout out to Don Cisco.
Shout out to Don Cisco.
Don, you just probably made him write a better book next time. Because that chip on even though you're joking about it, you're like, you take it a little bit, like, because the hate is real.
Oh, yeah, for sure,
like people, like, I get more bald comments. Like, I'm like, bro, I can afford hair plugs, okay? Like, so, you know what I mean? Like, if I just match up to this guy, I'm gonna freaking grow hair, Well,
I was gonna ask, like, how do you, and and I think it's easy for us to, make light of it or whatever, but like, how much shit do you get on your social media from people who just hate for no reason?
Yeah, but see, and that's one thing, like, I learned, like, with rapping, like, being out there, I mean, there's so many great quotes about it that, if you aren't ready to get hated on, you're not ready for success. It's so true. That's why even that comment, it's like, come on, like,
just listen to Cardi B's song, man. She's a bad. If you like rap, I like Cardi B. She just said, "I'm not." It's whatever she says. Money moves, right?
Yeah,
that song she's got out there. You know what I mean? It's like, it's pretty simple. People who, and you're gonna find it more often. I've found that the friends I've had longer sometimes are secretly envious of you,
man.
and they're hating on you. Like I got. friends of mine, I'm not going to name them right now, but like where I'm like, you know, I've tried to help you for the last 10 years, and now you see me on social media, and now you're trying to suck my time.
That's exactly what he's.
And I'm like, you know what? You're going to pay for the course because I already offered the advice.
It's funny. A few years ago, I posted something like that. I said, I've tried my best to give you free advice that now if you want to learn, you're going to have to pay me. And this was 3 years ago or something. And it's so true. That's like hilarious. I'm actually in the middle of putting my mentorship together. Like it makes me think of that because it's so true. I love that.
Well, you know what? I
love that.
This is the bottom line. And I learned this from Zig Ziglar. If you guys know who Zig Ziglar is.
Oh my God, yes.
Okay.
That was king.
He says, you know, he gives us a little analogy like, but it basically boils down to people do not respect what they get for free. Yeah. And they do not value what they get for free. Like if I go give you this phone right here and I'm like, here you go, and you lose it, it's no big deal.
Yes.
But if you paid, he's got a Louis Vuitton thing on. If you paid $5,000 for this phone,
the phone case.
We talked about that on one of the episodes. For example, with me, I never, and I'm sure there's been one or two, but like with my music back then with CDs, I never gave them for free because I knew that they were just going to throw them out the window.
Right.
And even at one point to move some units, I was like, hey, whatever you got, $5, they would give me $3, $4. Even if it was $1, that dollar would make them think, you know what, let me at least throw it in because I put some money into it. And even with my books nowadays, I've given out some, but it's that value. Like if you want, I think your brand to be, it's like Louis, right? Like they don't even do commercials. Like, like
they got such a strong brand. Yeah. Well, and just listen, if you're a Raiders fan.
Yeah. Here we go.
All right. So when you live in Lincoln, Nebraska. So let's say that you bought tickets to the Vegas Raiders to go. What's your favorite, I guess, team that you want to see them go against? Competitor?
Not right now. I don't even want to talk about it.
Okay. All right. So you got Vegas. You got Vegas Raiders tickets. You're going to the game.
I went to the Bengals game when they played in Vegas. That was fun.
Okay. So you went to the let's talk. How much did you spend on that?
Oh, good question. On the tickets, I think, and it was 4 of us. I want to say like $1,500 for 4 tickets.
For 4 tickets, plus how much did you spend on the trip?
Oh man, yeah. Probably
a couple thousand.
Right. Yeah.
So you spent money there, therefore you went to the game.
Yeah.
If I gave you tickets to that same game, you may not go.
Yeah.
Because
it makes me think of the Crawford fight because it was that same weekend. I don't know if you keep up with boxing.
A little bit.
I made a Crawford song too out now. Anybody? Don Cisco, check it out.
That should be your new thing. Shout out Don Cisco. Shout out Don Cisco.
Can you like write a Don Cisco song? And just be about haters, dude.
Just call it Hater. Call it Hater.
No, I'll just name it Don Cisco. The funny thing, I guarantee you that there's a 90% chance that's not even their name. That's what's funny. But anyways, so with the Crawford fight, it's funny you say that because our flight got there and we were late, but we got there and we got our beer, and as soon as we ran to the seats, the fight was starting. And it's true because I guarantee you that if we wouldn't have paid for those tickets, for example, we probably would have been like, oh, we'll get there, it's fine. So you got to put value in your brand. So
whatever it is, don't when you give away something for free, don't.
Yeah.
Unless it gets their email, and that's the value that you try for.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
That marketing.
Love it. Well, man. So as much as I hate to, we gotta pack up and go eat some barbecue or something. Probably it's about lunchtime. Huh? Here we are talking about losing weight.
Yeah. Listen, if you're trying to lose weight and you guys want to go to a great barbecue joint, go to Slaps Barbecue.
Okay. I think I've heard of that before.
Yeah, these guys. So I invested in this bridge. If you guys want to check it out, go to my YouTube channel.
A bridge?
Yeah.
Like a bridge?
It's a real estate deal. So like the guy is literally taking a city and building a bridge, taking a bridge and building a city on it. And he's one of the barbecue. He's trying to get best in class and everything like that. And Slaps Barbecue was started by these 2 guys who I met who are part of that project. And it's probably the best barbecue in town. If you can't get there, then I would tell you anything else is good.
Yeah. Awesome. Sounds good. But we hate to go. But to wrap up the show, there's 3 questions that I would like to ask you. More for wisdom for our listeners out there. The first question that I have is, if you were to look at your younger self and give yourself some advice, what is that advice?
Get a mentor and start early. And see, get a mentor, start early, and don't worry about what anybody else thinks.
I like it. It goes with the show too.
You're gonna get a million people. They're gonna tell you that you can't do something, that you won't do something. That's just because they believe they can't do something. Mm-hmm. And I believe more now than I ever did at a young age that anything is within my grasp, like building skyscrapers, like, developing places in Nicaragua, places in El Salvador. That's all something that I can do if I put my mind to it. So put your mind to it. Don't become complacent. Don't work for anybody else unless you love what you do. Be an entrepreneur.
I love that. And actually, El Salvador is coming up with a city called Bitcoin City. And it's tax-free because the Bitcoin is developed there in the volcano. Crazy. Look it up whenever you're bored.
They use the energy to mine it. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that sounds like marketing.
For sure.
There's a volcano to make our Bitcoin.
For sure.
And blockchain.
that Dogecoin or whatever.
Yep. The next question that I have for you, if there's a 3-step formula to success, what are the 3 steps?
Start, don't quit, and if your plan is not going according to plan, change your plan. And just kind of elaborate on that, you have to set goals. You have to set goals, and you have to remind yourself of what those goals are. And even if you don't hit those goals, continue to try to hit those goals, because sometimes you're just not going to hit them. Like maybe 2021 wasn't the year that I got my jet, but it's still on the goal list.
Love that. Love it. And then the last question that I have for you, which you meant. So normally we ask, if you were to write a book, what would be the theme and the title? So if you could give us a little more on what the book that you wrote already, right?
Yeah. So it's called Millionaire Mentorship, how I started from broke and got to where I'm at. I'm just a regular guy that started with nothing. My parents got their house foreclosed on. So the book is basically A to Z real estate, subject to, with some stories about because I read it was so dry. It was like a recipe, like how to do it.
Which is good. I like that.
Yeah, it is good. But most people want a little bit of entertainment value in the book. And it was really literally flour.
Straight. Yeah.
Yeah. And because I had just dictated and gave somebody else the book. So I rewrote it. It's got a bunch of stories that will give people like, hey, here's an example of how I did a subject to. Here's an example of a probate. And you know what I mean? So
I love that.
Yeah, that's the book. It's coming out. If they want a copy of it, probably go to my website and order it, or Amazon if it's available. Depends on when this podcast comes out.
Which leads to the next
so I got a couple questions too. First, if there's anything of value that our listeners can bring to you, is what
Speak up.
what could
I can't hear you.
Yeah.
If there's anything
anything of value, I am looking always for quality people. So if you are somebody who has a skill set, if you're good at e-commerce, if you're good at social media, if you are good at construction and managing people, or if you think there's something that you can bring to me, or if you got a jet, whatever this is, I'm serious. Like what any of those things are, and you feel like you can bring me value, hit me up on Instagram, follow me on TikTok, all the socials like that. But definitely get a hold of me, but bring value, and I will teach you everything I know.
So, AKA, ask him if you can take him out to pick his brain over coffee.
Yeah, and there will be no reply.
So, if anyone does have anything, what's where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and they can email me if they have a deal at tk@lacostaglobal.com.
And then
YouTube, of course. Yeah.
Your handles for TikTok and
Troy Kearns channel. Sorry, it's all my name. Troy Kearns channel. We have a podcast that's out this week or next week. So everything's Troy Kearns channel, Troy Kearns channel, Troy Kearns channel.
That's the brand, man.
Which we'll throw it on the.
Yeah, we'll put it on the notes.
Sweet. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
it's been
awesome.
amazing.
Thanks for having me. You guys are super cool. You guys came all the way out here, and we switched on the fly. So I appreciate you guys being
for
nimble.
sure. Yep. No, thank you. And everybody out there listening, make sure you guys follow us at Minority Report Podcast on Instagram, and then also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is the Minority Report Podcast, and also anywhere podcasts are available. So let's get it, baby. Vámonos.
Baby, let's get it. My hand to please don't segregate. Dress in a suit, I can't relate. Minority report, can't ignore. Being rich from poor and your credit score. My hand to please don't segregate. Dress in a suit, I can't relate. Minority report, can't ignore.